In this Photoshop project tutorial, I'm going to walk you through the basic steps and procedures for producing your own Maxim Magazine's 24 Hours to Live interview. Okay, so this is your master file, Maxim Interview ELAC. We've got the ELAC Huskies logo right here. See if I turn that off. The original in the magazine was called 24 Hours to Live. We're just going to update it to ELAC Huskies. You've also got the brand or the name right here. Name goes here. Give them a subtitle. You have looked at samples of what has been done before. So I want to show you how to make your own interview page. Okay, this is the basics. So you're going to be using a lot of layers. I don't really need my properties or my adjustments, so I'm going to double click that name. That way my layers panel gets expanded. If that's still not enough, I can tear it out right here and then just pull that corner down so we can see. Now I've got a big stack of layers. So if I wanted to look at the example first, I can hold Option on my Mac or Alt on my PC and click on this eyeball. Okay, there we go. Now I have lowered the opacity of that so it's more like a template, but you can come right up here to the opacity and drag it back to 100. And this was what the original interview looked like. Maxim Magazine did an interview with Seth Green. So obviously we have him prominently displayed. Says our name, Seth Green. Our subtitle, what is it about him? The multi-talented Mars Needs Mom star breaks down his last day. If he had 24 hours to live, what would he do? So let me zoom in here and check out some of their interview questions that they did. So how would you want to go? How do you want to go in your last day? I want to either go peacefully, surrounded by loved ones, or flung from a massive slingshot into a helicopter. So how do we illustrate that answer? A graphic of a slingshot into a helicopter. You're using images to base or illustrate their answers. Images based on their answers. Do you have any deathbed confessions? I probably shouldn't say this till I'm dead, but I coined the phrase cha-ching. So let's use some type. Cha-ching. Okay. Let's take a look at another one. Will you be going to heaven or hell when you die? Although I've lived morally and ethically as an adult, my youth was spent spinning in an angst-fueled rage. I'll probably be going to heaven. And he's got, I don't really see an image of heaven. Maybe the up arrow indicates he's going up into heaven. So I can be pretty secretive in your answers. Let's see. The magic unicorn bears a heavy burden. So there's a little magic unicorn graphic. Let's see. On Robot Chicken, you mock a lot of people. Which of them do you think will be the first to spit on your grave? I don't know. I may put a spittoon on my headstone so people have a fun place. So there's a little spittoon, spit here on his grave because he's insulted so many people. What song plays as you die? Chocolate Rain. So he's got his little graphic of chocolate raindrops going down there. What's your last meal? Penne arrabbiata or an In-N-Out double-double? So he's got his penne arrabbiata right there or his In-N-Out double-double somewhere in here. He's got a burger. Maybe that's, I don't know. He's got a bunch of food in there. I probably would have shown just a big cheeseburger, but whatever. He's got food in there. Let's see, my wife. I don't think he put in a picture of his wife. Let's see, San Dimas High School football rules. I don't see the rest of that. But he's got a bunch of graphics in here that represent the answers to what he's talking about. Okay, so that is what we want to try to do with our own choice of images and our own interview and our own subject for the interview. So I'm going to lower this transparency down back to about 35, right about there where it was. I can hold Option or Alt and click on the eyeball again. That'll bring all my layers back. If that doesn't work, if you click one other layer and then you come back and option click and it doesn't work, you could just click and drag to turn on layers again. You don't have to click each eyeball individually. So we'll just turn them all back on. Our goal is to update all this information. Okay, so now that I know the general idea, I really don't need this template. I can either throw it in the trash or just turn off the eyeball. This is our image space we need to fill. But before you do that, I recommend you do your interview. Okay, so I am going to click right here. And this is an interview that I did with my wife. 24 hours to live, interview questions, demo questions answered by Marie Nielsen. Okay, what you need to remind people of is that this is an image-based project. So get people to come up with answers that are more image-based. Here's an example. I asked my wife kind of the same question in the interview. So how do you want to go? She said quickly. That's a dumb answer, okay? I can't really illustrate or come up with an image of quickly. Maybe I can come up with an image of the Flash, but people would think she's talking about superheroes. So quickly was kind of a dumb answer, okay? Do you have any deathbed confessions? No. Like, okay, this is really starting off as a boring interview. Like, come on, be creative with this. So I said, what would you have liked to invent when you were alive? And she said, a time machine. I'm like, cool. I can work with that. So I'm going to keep that in mind. A time machine. That's a physical object I can go get. Then I said, when you die, will you be going to heaven or hell? Heaven. So I need to come up with images based on time machines. I need to find images based on what could be perceived or thought of as heaven. Was there anyone on earth you wanted to punch in the face? Too many people to count. I didn't know my wife was that much of an angry person, but too many to count? How do I represent that? Maybe a crowd, but that could also be related to she doesn't like crowded spaces. So that was another answer I didn't really like. Name one thing you're glad you'll never have to do again. Drive. So I probably want to look for somebody who also doesn't look like they enjoy driving. What's your last meal going to be? Something with chocolate. She loves C's chocolates. Okay, is there anyone you would want to haunt? She didn't even give an answer. What's your proudest accomplishment? Raising your son. So I'm going to find a picture of our son. What are people saying over your casket? Goodbye. Okay, how do I find an image related to goodbye? You get the idea. I need answers based on objects or images. Come up with whatever questions you want to come up with. You don't have to use mine. You can go on to Google and just type in interesting interview questions and find some questions. I would recommend 15 at the minimum, 20 at the most. Anywhere from 15 to 20 questions. Get questions and answers. Get answers that will help you to build images. So what deceased person would you most like to walk and talk with in the afterlife? She said either Abraham Lincoln or Einstein. What physical feature would you most like to be remembered for? Her smile. What have you wasted most of your money on throughout your life? Bills. Or that should say, what have you wasted most of your husband's money on? Bills. What chore would you like to least be stuck with in hell? Bathroom duty. I'm going to go out and I'm going to find the grossest bathroom I can find because it's like the bathroom from hell. What song plays as you die? I'll Fly Away. I'm thinking angels. People fly, they're angels. Do they use Macs or PCs in heaven? They use both. Well, she got that answer wrong. They use Macs. What book do you regret not finishing? I've never left a book unfinished. So I'm going to look for a stack of books. If you walked into her bedroom, you'd see a pile of books. So these are all a lot of images or a lot of answers based on images. Okay, so what I'm going to do is type out my interview. Okay. I don't want to type out these interview questions. They don't really help with the interview. What would you like to invent when you were alive? A time machine. So I might start with that. Okay, so I'll zoom in here. I know I've got the name of the figure, so I can take my type tool, highlight that, and say Marie Nielsen. Okay, we'll click outside on my move tool. That layer is done. Now I take my type tool, highlight the subtitle. The premier suburban housewife tells her life story in pictures. All right, there's my little subheading. Marie Nielsen, the premier suburban housewife, tells her life story in pictures. Then I've got my information. Questions. So, let's see, what would you have liked to invent when you were alive? Okay, now I'm going to highlight the answers. Your answers go on these lines. A time machine. Okay, when I'm done with that, I can just highlight the question and answer, go to edit and copy that. Now I click right at the end, I hit return, return, edit, paste. Now I can highlight this question, type the next one. Highlight the answer, type the next answer. So maybe 2 or 3 questions per line. So there's, let's say if I get 3 questions, 3, 6, 9, 12, okay, based on their answers. So you've got 15 to 20 to choose from. Get more than what you need instead of having not enough. Okay, and then you can narrow it down. Maybe I didn't like that question and answer, so now I can narrow it down. I picked 12. If you got really short questions and answers, you might be able to fit in 14 questions. But that's up to you. Type them in. Get them set. Then what you want to do is go down here and say, this is spring 2021. So you update that. Illustration by, this is going to be your name. So Chris Nielsen. So I know I did the work. And now based on my questions and answers, I want to start filling my interview space. So I'm going to start right here at the bottom. Now I'm going to go to File and Open, and I need the interviewee. So I took a picture of my wife. Okay, this was the original photo that we started with right there. I just took the photo, kind of like the original interview. This was the original photo. But I wanted it to look a little more graphic, like they did in Maxim magazine. So I made a copy of her and I changed it to black and white. I adjusted my levels, made it a little brighter areas, a little darker areas here. But that was just a black and white photo. So I copied that and posterized it. Image menu, adjustments, and posterized the values. That broke them down into this more graphic look right there. And then just so it didn't look so plain, I added a layer of color. And I just quickly brushed in a little paint stroke here and there. That's what my paint looked like. I set my paint to overlay mode. Here's normal mode. That's what I did. I just painted a little quick blotch of paint. Blended my paint into the photo. I could go with this effect if I wanted to, or this effect, but I liked overlay. Added a nice little tint of color. Okay, so what I did is, now that I liked this result, I just put her on a green screen just so I could see her more clearly, because it's kind of hard to see grayscale images on this transparency grid. So I just threw in a little layer of green. And I like that result right there. Okay, so what I did is I took this layer, shift click, click the upper right corner of my layers panel and merged those layers together. Like that. Now I could take my move tool and I'm going to move this photo all the way up. Wait a second and drop it back in. Okay, but I don't like all those browns that are showing up around her head. So I'll throw away that layer. I'll come back to my original portrait. I'll say edit. Let's see if we can undo this. There we go. And instead of merging my layers, I'm going to bring them in as individual layers. So let me click there and shift click there. Now I take my move tool and I'll drag the whole thing up. Wait a second. Drop it back in. And the brown is going to blend with other colors. Because remember, my brown is set to overlay. That's going to be good when I start to put other colors here. I don't want her looking like her body got cut in half. So I'm going to move her down. Command T to transform, or Control T on a PC. And I just drag the corner up. She is the subject of the interview, so she is the one who needs to stand out in this interview. I gotta instantly recognize who this interview is about. So always hit return or enter when you're done. And there's my subject of my interview. Okay, one of the answers was, will you be going to heaven or hell when you die? She said heaven. So I'm gonna start always at the bottom, because now I need another image to go underneath or behind her. So I start on the bottom. I'm done with this portrait. I'll close it. No need to save it. I'll go to File and Open now that I've collected a folder of images. So again, based on her interview, I asked her different questions. What book have you never finished? She said, I never leave books unfinished. So I found a stack of books. What's going to be your last meal? She said something with chocolates. So I found a box of C's chocolates. What's one thing you're glad you'll never have to do again? She said drive. So I found this image of a crazy driver. It's like my wife driving in traffic. Who would you want to talk to in the afterlife? She said either Einstein, so I found a stamp, or Abraham Lincoln. So I found a penny. Okay. What are they going to say over your casket at your funeral? She said, goodbye. So I found this little text of goodbye. I don't need the ink or the ring or the pen, but I like that little graphic look of the word goodbye. She said when she dies, she's going to heaven. So I found these heavenly looking clouds. I also found Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven, but that's more in reference to a song. This was a little more generalized. It's like the light of heaven. Okay, what other chore would you least want to be stuck with? She said bathroom duty. So I found this really nasty picture of a toilet. What song plays when you die? She said, I'll Fly Away. So I found an angel. I didn't want the typical angel, so I found a Rolls Royce angel. I love that one. What's your feature you want to be remembered for? She said her smile. So I found a smile button. What have you wasted most of your money on? She said taxes. So I found an old tax bill online. What is the one thing you would have liked to invent? She said a time machine. So I'm going to go back to the future. That's my cool version of a time machine. The nasty toilet, I went with a toilet brush. Just found a graphic of a toilet brush. So I'm finding images based on her answers. And now I got to put those images to use. Okay, so I want the heavenly clouds. I'm just going to take the whole image, drag it up, wait a second, drop it in. Not exactly big enough for what I'm trying to do. So I'm going to hit Command T or Control T on a PC, and I'm going to drag the corner out. But I want those clouds to kind of stay up above her shoulders right up in here, which means I'm running out of room. Okay, So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this up, hit return to accept the transformation. And I like that down there, but I don't like her image also being an overlay. So I'm going to set it back to a normal black and white photo. There we go. It's nice and solid. But this photo of heaven just stops. So what I'm going to do is take my eyedropper tool and I'm going to sample this blue from the sky right up in here. Actually, let's go with this blue down in here. Then I'm going to come to the background, and in order to fill this background with this shade of blue, on my Mac I hit my Option key and the big Delete key. That will fill that layer with the color. On a PC I would hit Alt and Backspace. That is a keyboard shortcut for filling an area with the foreground color. Now I still see a hard edge here, so I'm going to go to my image of heaven, and you're going to start stacking a lot of layers. So I'm going to double click my layer names and start naming my layers. Heaven, clouds, I'll call this one Marie. Okay, splash of color is good. Heavenly clouds. I don't want them to end with a hard edge, so I'm going to use a layer mask. A layer mask is your Photoshop eraser. It's right here. It's the third one from the left. If you hover over it, it says Add Layer Mask. So you're going to click it one time. And this layer mask has a white frame around it. That's how you know you are ready to erase. Okay, so what you want to do on a layer mask is you want to always hit D for default colors. And the problem is, if your layer mask is white, painting with white won't do anything. So you always hit D for default colors and then X to switch to black. Black paint is what erases on a layer mask. So now I go to my paintbrush. I'm going to hold Control key and Option on my Mac and drag to the right. I'll drag up to make the brush tip soft. Drag to the right to make it big. On a PC, you would hold Control key and Alt key and use your right button on your mouse to drag. So remember, left and right is the size, up is soft, down is a hard brush, so I want a soft brush. And I'm just going to skim the bottom edge of this photo. Like that, just to fade out my clouds. I can make my brush even bigger. Just tap once to kind of fade the clouds out right there. So now these clouds just blend into that paint. Great, I like that. Instead of looking so flat down here, I might experiment and try a filter. Have fun with Photoshop. So I'll go to Filter menu. Let's go to Artistic and let's try the Sponge filter. And the sponge just adds a nice little texture. Okay, I might want my brush size to be a little bigger so I don't see so much of that detail right there. And let's see what the smoothness does. I like that a little more. And I'll click OK. There we go. Now I've got my sky kind of fading to this texture. I like that. Because remember, I'm not going to see all of this. I'm going to see a little bit. And here's the other trick, which I really love. If you apply a filter and you've done nothing else, immediately after you apply a filter, you can go to Edit menu and fade the filter, but you have to do it immediately afterwards. So now I'll just apply the opacity right there, and we get a nice soft sponge effect. Now it's not so overwhelming. And I'll click OK. Great. Okay, one of the other answers is the song I'll Fly Away will play at her funeral. So now I'll go to File and Open, And I'll grab that image of the angel that I liked for I'll Fly Away. Okay, I just want the angel from this Rolls-Royce hood ornament. What's nice about this photo that I found is there's a lot of contrast, a dark image on a light background. So the second tool down on the right is your magic wand. That is for selecting flat areas of color. This is a photo which has tons of color. So I'm going to press and hold and go to my quick selection tool. All I need to do is keep this circle inside the body of the angel, and I click and drag over all of her values right down into the legs. I don't need all of it, but a big bulk of this angel would do nicely if I can. Okay, right about in there. If I accidentally go out like that, I can hold Option or Alt and I will get a minus, and I can scrape or subtract my little mistake right there. That's cool. That's all I needed. Always switch to your move tool to physically move the object up to the tab. Wait a second, then pull it back in, then let go of your mouse. And let's bring that layer above the clouds. There we go. So she's looking nice and solid. It's a little bit small, so I hit Command or Control T on a PC, Command T on a Mac, and I can just pull the bottom corner here. I want her kind of coming up right in there. Okay, right out like that. I don't like that she's just chopped off at the feet, so I'm going to make another layer mask. D for default colors, X to switch to black. And now instead of taking a paintbrush, I'm going to take my gradient tool. What I would always recommend is as soon as you click a tool, look up at your settings. Okay, I want the basic gradients right here. The first one, black to white. If this window stays open on your screen, you could just click anywhere out here. That'll get rid of the pop-up window. And now, when I take a gradient and I start at the bottom and drag up, I get a hard gradient. If I drag a longer line, I get a softer transition or fade. If I drag a really long line, I get this transparency fade as she's fading out from the clouds. That's how you blend one image into the next, is you create a layer mask and you paint a gradient on it. The problem is I don't want this looking like a big 50-pound statue about to slam into the back of her head. So I'm going to take my angel and blend it. Let's see what these blending modes do. Lighten mode, screen mode, color dodge mode. I like overlay. Overlay just blends her into that sky. She's looking a little softer. If I wanted her to blend out a little more, right next to my blending modes, I have an opacity, and I could drag that back and kind of ghost her out a little bit. Angels aren't solid, they're spirits. So there's I'll Fly Away. Okay, another thing that they said at her funeral is goodbye. So I'll go to another image right here, grab my image of goodbye. And like I said, I don't need the ring or the pen or the blots of ink. So I'm just going to take my normal lasso tool and just make a quick lasso right here around this part that I want. I don't want all those droplets there. There we go. I liked a couple of these. Always switch back to your move tool to physically move the object all the way up to the tab and wait a second. Drop it back in. Now remember, I need to keep track of my layers, so I don't want that popping way up there. I'm going to pull it way down here. Kind of go with all my other images down here. I'll double click the name and call that goodbye. Let's see, this was my angel. If you're not sure what's on a layer, turn the eyeball on and off. Okay, so I know that was the angel. Double click, angel, and hit return or enter. All right, there's my goodbye, because I can't even tell what's on that layer. So at least I have the name of the layer. I don't like the angle. Command T on a Mac or Control T on a PC to transform. If you go way outside the box, you get a bent arrow, so I could rotate that. Maybe bring it in a little bit smaller right up in there. Okay, I want to move that because I don't want that ink blotch slamming into her face. So maybe a little bit smaller right in there. Always hit return or enter when you are done. And now the problem is I've got a big white blotch of paper around that word. I just wanted the letters. So a great trick in Photoshop is your blending modes. And when you want white to turn invisible, you set it to multiply. There we go. A blending mode of multiply makes the white paper disappear. But that only works on white. Notice I still have a bunch of gray around the word. So if I wanted the gray to also disappear, I take that image, make some adjustments to the level of value. Okay, watch this white slider. The brightest white should be over here, like right over here. So watch this gray area. When I drag this to the left, it just fades right out. Look at that. That is what I love about the power of Photoshop. I get only the part I want you to see. Not all that junky paper. Here's what the original looks like. I've cleaned it up to a white background and I've blended out the white. Great. All right, there we go. Got another layer done. What I would recommend is after every 2 or 3 layers, save your progress. Okay, I'm just going to click Save As, and I'm going to call this last name, first name. Let's call it Project 1 Interview. I'm going to save it as a Photoshop file because that will preserve all my layers. I'm not done yet. And just for safety's sake, I'm going to save it out on my desktop. When you go to save a layered Photoshop file, you're going to get this warning. Just click Don't Show Again. What this really says is blah, 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 blah. You're not going to need it, so click OK. All right. So now you kind of get the process, and I'm going to go through a few more things. I'll go to File and Open, and let's see, now that I've saved that, let's go back to my files here. Project files, demo, there we go. And one of the other things she didn't, or that she wasted her money on, was bills. Okay, so I'm just going to take the whole tax bill. I just typed in tax bill on Google and found this. So I'm just going to drag the whole thing up, drop the whole thing in, and I want to pull that down below her. But I don't want it looking like a big, huge sheet of paper. So again, if I want white to fade away, I set my blending mode to multiply. Command T on a Mac or Control T on a PC, and I'll rotate that a little bit, maybe blow it up a little bit more. And let's have this come down into here. Kind of like that right in there. My wife has never been to Wisconsin, so I don't want that. So I'll create another layer mask. Add layer mask, D for default colors, X to switch to black. And now with that big paintbrush again, I can just wipe out some of this area that I don't want to show. Maybe some of that right in there. Maybe blend a little bit. So I have a little bit of a tax form showing up in reference to that answer. That's all I need. Okay, and one of the other things she would hate to be stuck with is bathroom duty. So I'm going to open up this picture of a nasty toilet, and I'm just going to drag the whole thing up, drop it right in here in the corner, and let's put that under the bill. Okay, and here's a problem you're going to face. If I wanted to move the toilet and I click and drag, notice it keeps selecting the bill. Okay, so I'm going to go to undo. If I want to move a layer that's under another layer, you take your move tool and you turn off this button. Right now it's set to auto select. So whatever I click on, it will automatically jump to that layer. If I try to click on the toilet, it's going to click the bill that is on top of that toilet. So if I want to be more creative, turn this off for a second. Now I come down to the toilet and notice it won't affect the bill. Okay, and I'm going to hit Command T, blow that up a little bit so we have a nice, big, ugly, nasty toilet right there. Hit return. But the rest of mine has this nice bluish, heavenly color. So we'll take that photo of the toilet and let's try some blending modes here. And let's see which one works well for that. Again, I'm a fan of overlay, but I've used enough. So let's see what hard light works kind of well. I like that. Notice the bill is going right into the toilet because that's what she wasted her money on. I can click on that bill and move that money, move that value right down into the toilet. Just flushing your money away. Great. I don't like that the edge of the toilet right here, you can see that hard edge. So I'll require another layer mask. D for default colors, X for black. Take my brush and I'll just kind of skim the outer edges of that photo right there, just to get it to kind of fade away. There we go. That's good enough for me. Money's going down the toilet. All right. She also said she never leaves a book unread. So I found this image of a stack of books. It's on a white background. So I'm going to take my magic wand. Your magic wand is for selecting areas of flat color. So now I could just click on the white. But I have selected the white wall. I want the books. So sometimes in Photoshop, it's easier to select what's not there. Instead of trying to click on thousands of values, I click on the one value. I need the opposite of that. So I'm going to go to Select menu and Inverse, which is like the word reverse. I'm going to reverse my selection. Now when I take my move tool, I'm only moving the books. Right there. Let's bring that stack of books up, above. Command T or Control T on a PC, remember that. And I'll bring that down so it looks a little more believable, like a little stack of books right here. There we go, put them in her hand. All right, but that looks really plain. You know, all my other images have kind of a graphic feel, not just drop, drag and drop. It looks kind of boring. So I'm going to double click the name of this layer, call it books. And then I'm going to duplicate that layer by hitting Command J. On a PC, that would be Control J. Now I have a copy of those books like this. Copies sit right on top of the original. We'll just undo that move. And now what I want to do is maybe add a filter to this copy. So I'll go to Filter menu. First, let's hit D. D for default colors when I go to deal with filters. Filter menu, artistic. Let's try a watercolor filter. And that gives these books a nice graphic look to them. Okay, it's taking the black from my foreground color and applying that. I can add more texture, less texture, more shadow intensity or less. I want to bring it in less right there. Less detail, more detail. Actually, that's more detail on the left, less on the right. Okay, and I like that. But now our books look all dirty. So let's keep experimenting with blending modes. What does color burn look like? Makes the books look even older. Linear burn. Try these different ones. See what that does. Vivid light. Ooh, I like that. Hard light. That just gives a little bit more of a graphic edge to the books. It kind of goes with the graphic look of her photo. There you go. She's holding a nice stack of books. One of the other answers she said was one of her last meals has something to do with chocolates. So I'll go to File and Open, and I'll find chocolates. I want to trace just this little box. And the majority of this has pretty much straight edges. So instead of my lasso tool, which makes any shaped selection, I want to go with the polygon. And what this basically does is play connect the dots. I'll just do one up here first. So click, move, click, move, click, move, click, and you find your way back to the start. Okay, Command D to deselect, or that would be Control D on a PC to turn off your selections if you don't like them. And I'm going to start right here. Click and then move, click and then move. If the box bends, maybe I'll add one here. Click and then move, click and then move. Box has a little bit of a bend, so click, 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 click. So it might require a couple of clicks. Click, 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 and back to the start. I go to my move tool, move this up, drop it into place in the other hand. She wouldn't eat that much chocolate, so Command T. We'll shrink that down right there and put that right in her hand. I can move that layer down below, so it looks like it's in her hand. But then it goes behind her back, so never mind. We'll put it on top. Okay, she's holding books. She's holding chocolates. I'll just do one more here. Yeah, I think you get the idea behind this. So find images related to your answers. If she wanted to talk to Albert Einstein, you know, I could take my magic wand, click on the white of the stamp. Now I can take my rectangle tool, hold Shift to add the entire center of that stamp. Go to my move tool always to move an object and drop it into place. Start figuring out where you want things to go by stacking your layers. Command T to transform objects. So I could put a little stamp of Einstein in there because she wanted to talk to Einstein. I could put a penny. Let's go in here. She liked this penny. And this is a GIF file. So the problem is it has what's called an index color mode. So if I drag that up and tried to drop it in, it won't even work. Okay? Color modes have to match. So if that ever happens and you download a GIF, go to Image menu, change the mode back to the same color mode, then you can drag and drop it in. Command T, shrink it down, maybe put it right up in here because she wanted to talk to Lincoln and Einstein, so we'll put them right in there kind of with each other. Save your progress every couple layers. I'll just do one more. I think you get the hang of this by now. We'll do our time machine right here. Okay, and again, it's on a white background, so I'll click on white, select menu, turn my selection inside out, and now with my move tool, I'll just move this up, drop it in, Command T to transform it, at least make it stand out a little bit more. And let's set that one to a blending mode. Let's see what, soft light looks good. I don't want it to stand out too much. So let's go soft light. There's our time machine that she's referring to. Feel free to drop in images that spill out into our space. You know, you have that option available. You can have images break out of the frame like you've seen in some of the samples. Not everything has to be trapped inside our image space. So let's see if I can find one more here. Let's see if there's just an object I can take. The smile. She wants to be known for her smile when she dies. So I'm going to take my elliptical marquee, click and drag, and after I drag, I can hold my space bar while I'm still holding the mouse. Hold my space bar and kind of move it over to the side and the top. Let go of just my space bar and continue to resize that elliptical marquee right there. Space bar to move. Now I can switch to the physical move tool, drag it up, drop it in. And like I said, if you want something breaking the border, lift that layer above the white cover. And now it will break out of that border. So if I wanted her smile to be there, I could do it there. But beware, it's going to be above everything else. So I might want to put it right in here. Command T, just so it doesn't overwhelm and take away from her face. Might move it in a little bit. Maybe have it break out in that empty space right in there. So feel free to break the borders. You do not have to stick with a white sheet of paper either. Okay, if I go right here and I want my paper to look, let's say, old, I can go to Google. Okay, let's just get rid of that. I'll go in with a brand new window here in Google. Let me resize that on my screen right here. And I'll go to Google Images and I'll type in old paper texture or old paper background. I'm going to go to Tools, look for large images of paper, and I like this. Okay, what I'm going to do is control click on the preview and say open the image in a new tab. It's going to show up right up here at the top. If I click on it, I can zoom in, click and zoom out, click and zoom in. And now, if I'm using Chrome, I can drag and drop it right onto my Photoshop icon, and it will open here in Photoshop. If I'm on a PC, just download it first and then open it in Photoshop. Okay, so if I don't want to do it that way and I want to come back here, I can control click and say save the image. I'll just save it on my desktop as a JPEG. Okay. Now when I come back to Photoshop, I can just go to File and Open. And right there on my desktop, there's my image. Okay, if the image is horizontal, but my sheet of paper is vertical, I can go to Image menu, Image rotation, 90 degrees. Now I take my Move tool, move the whole thing up, drop the whole thing in, and I'm going to put it right up here. Command T to transform, and I'm just going to pull the corner way down so I know it covers everything. You always have to hit return or enter, but I want that to only show up where the white of the paper showed up. So I'm going to use a trick called a clipping group. Okay, what I'm going to do is put the sheet of paper right above the white, And on this line that separates those two layers, I'm going to hold my Option or Alt key, and without pressing on the mouse, I just move my mouse on my desktop up and down until I get this little bar, this little square with a down pointing arrow. And what that is telling me is Photoshop is ready to create a clipping group. And what that's going to do is trap the sheet of paper inside the boundaries of the white cover. Watch this. Option click. And now I have an old sheet of paper for my interview. So you can do whatever you want for this. You can keep it on a white sheet of paper, that's fine, but you can also be a little more creative. Okay? That's how you're going to build your interview. Now, when you are done, what you're going to do is save it as a JPEG. So you always want to keep your layers as a Photoshop file in case you want to go back and make changes later. But in order to turn it in, you go to File, Save As. Always have your first and last name. I always put your last name, then your first name, and then what is it? Last name, first name, it's Project 1 Interview. I'm now going to save the format as a JPEG to turn in. All you are going to be turning into me is JPEG files. When you click save and you're saving it on your desktop, Photoshop is going to ask you, what quality do you want for your JPEG file? Set it to high or 8. That's all you need to do. Send me high quality JPEGs. I click OK. And the JPEG is the file I'm going to submit in Canvas. So there's I was going to say a quick rundown, but there is a rundown of how you're going to approach your interview for Project 1.